Jack pulls at the waistband of his jeans, sucking in his stomach as he tries to force the button through the hole. Nothing. He exhales sharply, adjusts, pulls again. Still nothing. The fabric, once fitting him perfectly, now squeezes tight like an unwelcome reminder of something he's not ready to admit. When did this happen? He steps back, eye scanning his reflection, his belly pushing against the shirt that used to drape over him with ease. His arms, once strong, now softer. His chest, once broad, now shrinking inward. He tugs at his shirt, searching for an explanation. He hasn't changed how he eats. He hasn't stopped moving, but his body, it has changed without his permission. He shakes his head. Maybe it's just this one pair of jeans. Maybe they shrank in the wash. But then a memory surfaces, the way he had to grip the stair railing last week, just for a second. The moment when he stood up from the couch and felt his legs hesitate beneath him. Small things, easy to ignore, until now. Because now, standing here, staring at the proof in the mirror, something inside him whispers the truth. This isn't just weight gain. This isn't just aging. This is his body slipping away. And if it's happening here, where else is it happening? His pulse quickens. His jaw tightens. He grips the waistband of his jeans one last time, his determination flaring like defiance, but the fabric doesn't move. For the first time, a thought creeps in that he can't ignore. Is this it? Is this the moment where I start to fade? Or is it the moment he decides to fight back? Aging doesn't come all at once. It sneaks in, silent and unnoticed, in the small moments most men brush aside. But here's the truth, it's not too late. Not if you recognize the signs. Not if you take action now. At Elderly Wisdom Story, we talk about moments like this. The turning points. The lessons hidden in everyday life. Because wisdom isn't just about what you know. It's about what you do with it. If you're ready to take control of your health, your strength, and your future, then stay with me. Because this story isn't just Jack's story. It's yours. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly what's happening to your body and, more importantly, how to stop it. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's make sure you're always learning, always growing, and always in control of your next chapter. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of cut grass and damp earth, but Jack barely notices. He sits on the park bench, watching the world move around him. A group of younger men jogs past, their bodies moving with effortless rhythm, their breaths steady and controlled. He used to be like that, light on his feet, strong, unstoppable. Now, just sitting here, he feels the weight of time pressing down on him in a way he never expected. He shifts forward, planting his hands on his thighs, preparing to stand. It should be easy. It always was, but this time something is different. As he pushes himself up, his legs hesitate just for a fraction of a second, but it's enough. His body, once so reliable, now second-guesses him. His hands take over instinctively, pressing against his knees for support, giving him the extra leverage he suddenly needs. He straightens, masking the moment, pretending it didn't happen. But it did, and now that tiny hesitation lingers in his mind like an unwelcome whisper. He forces himself to shake it off, stepping toward the path. Ahead, a short flight of stairs leads to the walking trail. He's climbed thousands of stairs in his lifetime, but as he reaches the first step, his fingers brush against the railing. Not because he needs it, just instinct. Or is it? A quiet discomfort settles in his chest. Since when does he reach for support on something this simple? He quickly pulls his hand away, but the question remains, hovering like a shadow he can't shake. He keeps moving, pushing the thought aside, but the feeling clings to him. He was strong his whole life. He carried the weight of his family, literally and figuratively. He was the one who lifted, who built, who never backed down from hard work. But now, the simplest motions, a step, a stand, a climb, are requiring something they never did before. Effort. And then he sees him. Just ahead, an older man grips a walker, his steps slow and deliberate, his movements careful. Every shift of weight is measured, every step calculated. Jack watches as the man pauses before a curb, adjusting himself, testing his balance before moving forward. And suddenly it hits him. That man didn't get there overnight. It started with something small. A moment of hesitation. A little extra effort to stand. A hand reaching for a railing. And then, little by little, those moments stacked up until they became his reality. A life where stairs are obstacles. Where walking is an act of endurance. Where strength isn't just lost. It's forgotten. Jack's chest tightens, a deep, aching panic rising inside him. He never saw himself as the kind of man who would lose his strength, who would become fragile, dependent. But isn't that what every man thinks until it happens? Until one day their body no longer obeys them? Until they wake up and realize the strength they thought would always be there is already gone? He swallows hard, his breath suddenly heavy. He looks down at his hands, flexing his fingers. The weight in his legs, the tension in his knees, it's all there, subtle, creeping. He pictures himself, years from now, gripping a walker, struggling for balance, watching the world move past him. Is that where he's headed? No. A quiet but firm voice rises in his mind, pushing back against the fear. No, because he still has a choice. He turns back toward the bench, lowering himself slowly, carefully. He sits still for a long moment, his hands resting on his thighs. Then he takes a breath. A deep one. And as he exhales, he tightens his core, steadies himself, and rises. This time, he doesn't use his hands. This time, he doesn't hesitate. His legs shake slightly, but he does it. A small movement. A small victory. A decision. Because if he does nothing, he knows exactly where this road leads. And he refuses to go down that path. Jack sinks into his favorite chair, the worn leather cool against his arms, the familiar hum of conversation filling the air. His granddaughter runs toward him, her small feet pattering against the floor, her face glowing with excitement. She throws her arms around his neck, pressing her tiny frame against him in that way only children do, completely, unguarded, full of love. He closes his eyes for a moment, breathing her in, letting the warmth of the moment settle deep in his chest. But then, just as suddenly as she came, she pulls away. Her nose scrunches slightly. A small crease forms between her brows. "Grandpa?" She hesitates, her voice laced with innocent curiosity. "Why do you smell different?" The words land like a fist to his gut. His chest tightens, his heart skipping, not out of anger, but something far worse. Embarrassment. Confusion. A quiet kind of panic. He lets out a soft chuckle, a reflex to hide the sudden discomfort. "Different how?" he asks lightly, smoothing a hand over his shirt as if the answer might be there. She shrugs, playing with the hem of her dress. "I don't know, like old books and something else." She wrinkles her nose, then skips away, already lost in another thought, her world shifting effortlessly to the next moment. But Jack is stuck, frozen in place. Old books. Something else. His mind races, grasping at explanations. He shifts in his seat, suddenly hyper-aware of himself, of his own presence in the room. He lifts his arm slightly, takes a discreet breath against his sleeve. Fresh detergent. Clean fabric. Nothing out of the ordinary. He checks his breath. Fine. He smooths his hands over his pants, his chair, trying to pinpoint something, anything. But there's nothing. And yet she noticed. A slow, creeping unease curls inside him. Jack has always taken pride in being clean. He showers every morning, wears freshly laundered clothes, keeps his space neat and orderly. So why? Why would she say that? His chest tightens as another thought takes root. What if this isn't something he can wash off? That night, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, he leans in close, scanning his reflection as if searching for an answer hidden in his own skin. He rubs a hand over his face, his arms, his neck. He smells the same as always, doesn't he? But the thought lingers, stubborn and unsettling. What if it's not something on him? What if it's something in him? He grips the edge of the sink, his knuckles whitening against the porcelain. His heart beats a little faster as he grabs a fresh towel, rubbing at his arms, his neck, his chest. He reaches for his soap, scrubbing harder as if he can erase something invisible, something lurking beneath the surface. But no matter how much he washes, the doubt remains. Because he doesn't know it yet, but the answer is already written in his skin. As men age, their bodies change in ways no one talks about. Beneath the surface, something is shifting. The skin produces a compound called nonenal, a byproduct of oxidative stress, something that accumulates over time. It clings not just to the skin, but to fabrics, to sheets, to everything it touches. And the worst part? You can't smell it on yourself, but others can. A slow realization settles into his gut like a stone. He thinks back to moments he brushed aside, the times someone shifted slightly away, the moments he assumed were nothing. He thought he was in control, thought he was aware. But this has been happening without his knowledge, without his permission. For the first time, he feels truly out of control. Aging has a way of taking things from you in ways you never expect. First, it's strength stolen in quiet moments, in the hesitation on the stairs, in the reliance on the railing. But now it's something deeper, something more insidious. It's his presence, his very essence, changing in a way he can't see, can't stop. And the worst part? No one will ever tell him. He looks up at his reflection, searching for something, some sign, some proof that he's still him. But the truth is, no one notices when it starts. No one realizes the shift until one day someone says it out loud. Someone small, someone honest. Jack exhales slowly, steadying himself. If this is happening now, if time is creeping in and leaving its mark, then he has two choices. Let it happen. Let the changes define him. Or fight back. Because if he does nothing, he knows how the story ends. And he refuses to let that be his fate. Jack stands in front of the mirror once more, but this time something is different. His reflection isn't just a reminder of what's slipping away, it's a confrontation. He rolls his shoulders back, feeling the quiet burn of muscles reawakening, the subtle strength returning. It's not much yet, but it's enough. Enough to prove that change isn't just possible. It's already happening. The hesitation in his legs, the grip on the railing, the quiet fears that crept into his life, none of it is set in stone. Not if he decides to fight back. And now, the same question that haunted him weeks ago echoes in a different way. Is this it? No. Because he made a choice. But what about you? Because this isn't just Jack's story. It's yours. Maybe you've felt it too, the shift, the slow unraveling, the small losses that don't seem like much until suddenly, they're everything. Maybe you've ignored the signs, convinced yourself that you'll deal with them later. But here's the truth. Later is now. What happens next isn't about time. It's about choice. Your choice. Are you going to let time steal your strength? Let it take what's yours, piece by piece, until one day you wake up and wonder where it all went? Or are you going to fight back? Because the fight isn't over. It's just beginning. Aging isn't the enemy. It's a mirror, a reflection of how well you've lived, how much you've given, how deeply you've loved. But too often we see it as a slow surrender, a gradual fading into the background. That doesn't have to be your story. Strength is still yours to keep, but only if you reach for it. Confidence is still yours to own, but only if you refuse to let go. Your body will change, yes, but how it changes is still up to you. Because aging isn't about losing, it's about learning. Learning how to adapt, how to push back, how to take the wisdom of your years and use it to your advantage. You've spent a lifetime overcoming obstacles, fighting battles, proving your worth. Why stop now? If you're ready to stop watching time take what's yours, if you're ready to stand stronger, move better, and live bolder, then take the first step today. Subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Story. Be part of a community that refuses to fade, that refuses to let age define them. Because wisdom isn't just about knowing what's happening, it's about deciding what you're going to do about it. And your next chapter? That's yours to write. Aging has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked to learn. It strips away what we once took for granted, our strength, our speed, our sense of control. But if there's one truth that remains, it's this: you are not powerless. The years may change your body, but they do not define your spirit. What defines you is how you choose to respond. Jack's story isn't just about aging. It's about recognition. The moment he saw what was happening, the moment he realized that time wasn't waiting for him, that was the moment everything changed. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you know the truth, you have a choice. Accept the decline or fight for what's still yours. But here's the thing, you don't fight alone. Every man who has ever looked in the mirror and wondered, is this it? Every man who has ever felt the slow unraveling of his strength, his energy, his confidence, you are not the only one. There are others just like you, men who refuse to let time dictate the rest of their story. Men who choose to adapt, to push back, to reclaim what they still have. And that's why Elderly Wisdom Story exists. Not just to tell stories, but to teach the lessons that come with them. To remind you that aging isn't the end of strength, it's the beginning of a new kind of power. The kind that comes from wisdom, from experience, from knowing exactly what matters and what's worth fighting for. So ask yourself, what happens next? Will you let time steal from you, bit by bit? Or will you stand up, take control, and make sure that no matter how many years pass, you are still the one writing your story? If you're ready to take that step, subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Story. Be part of a community that refuses to fade, that refuses to give in. Because this isn't just about avoiding weakness, it's about reclaiming the strength that was always yours.